What's up, guys? Today I'm going to give you 3 tips that will have your chest looking exactly like Arnold's. I will give you those right after you hit the like, subscribe button, do all that YouTube stuff. Keep helping the channel grow. Now on to these 3 super secret magic pro tip, #pro tip tips to get you a chest like Arnold. Okay, they may or may not get you a chest like Arnold, depending if you have the exact same genetics of Arnold, maybe it will. But if you're a normal person, maybe it'll just help you move up a cup size or so. I don't know. We'll see. So these tips are going to be hopefully pretty helpful for pretty much any chest movement that you do. I'm going to talk specifically a little bit, especially for things that are more incline motions, or if you're looking a little bit more upper chest. Again, but hopefully all of these will be helpful to some degree. So tip number 1 is, again, find your arm path. Arm path is a lot more important than even the incline of a bench. So a lot of people think if they just put things on an incline, you're automatically working your upper chest. And even if you are working your chest, incline really more than anything else put you in a position where the lower pec fibers, the ones that attach more to your ribs, really just can't do as much. So it's not necessarily that incline stuff lets your upper chest do more. It probably just lets your lower pecs do a little bit less. If you really want your upper chest to work, first and foremost, you have to make sure that your upper arm path is in line with the fibers you're trying to train. And so again, I always talk about this, there's a little bit of a slot. So if this is kind of this high elbow position, some people can actually do chest stuff up here relatively comfortable. And if that's you, kudos for you. Your upper arm does kind of line up right with the fibers that attach to the top of your sternum. But some people, when you get high enough, this amount of abduction combined with a certain amount of internal rotation, you'll run out of a little bit of space in that subacromial space. You might pinch some stuff a little bit uncomfortable. So for most people, this is kind of the end, and let your elbow tuck down. And then from there, basically just figure out where your comfy spot is and think about where your upper arm is finishing. So again, you want your upper arm, your bicep, whatever you want to think about, moving in plane with the direction of where those fibers insert, where they attach. And so again, if we're looking up here, if you want it to come up to more, again, the top of your sternum, that can be your goal. If you're trying to get the pec fibers to attach more to your clavicle, that can even be your goal. So again, even on some flat stuff, if you have a little bit more of this arm path, so again, tuck down and finishing with your upper arms towards where you want to bias those pecs, that's going to have a lot more impact on what's working, even more than just going on an incline. So that's tip number 1. Make sure you really take time to figure out, does your arm path match the goal of what part of your pecs you're trying to bias or have work the most? Tip number 2 is kind of combining 2 things. I say at the bottom of a press, so when you're at the bottom of a barbell press, dumbbell press, whatever, that's one of the times where people make the biggest mistake of starting the concentric with something other than pecs. Starting it with delts is one of the most common things. So the 2 things that are, again, kind of combined into one is when you are at the bottom, I want you to think about rowing and getting a big chest. So again, in reality, you don't want your ribs moving through the press at all. So even as you come through to the finish, you'd like to keep the amount of spinal extension that will keep your ribs tall. But especially at the bottom, the combination of thinking big chest while rowing and retracting your shoulder blades together can really put you in a good position for your pecs to do more work to start the rep. And if you start with your pecs, it's going to be much easier to finish the rep with pecs. Whereas if you start with front delts, it's going to be very, very tough to find your pecs at any point in time through the rep. So as you come into the bottom, think those 2 things. Often I'll cue, if you're obviously benching, lying, or doing some sort of press lying back on a bench, think about raising your chest to the ceiling while at the same time you're rowing back, pulling your shoulder blades together. A lot of people get kind of confused or overthink the shoulder blades. I always say at the bottom, you really want them pulled back and together. And then from there, when you contract your chest, they just go where they're supposed to go. So that's tip number 2. Big chest, chest towards the ceiling combined with a row at the bottom, and you're going to be in a much better position to use your pecs and keep your front delt out of it. And then tip number 3 kind of ties in with number 1, but is, again, use cues that help you think about where your pec actually, the origin and the insertion is. So again, origin of stuff is more along here, kind of inserts into the upper arm. So really your pec just influences stuff attaching from here to here. So it doesn't have anything to do with your elbow, doesn't have anything to do with your hand or lower arm. So when you're finishing, a lot of people when they're finishing, they think about get my hands up, and it's very easy to do this as you're finishing the rep. It's very easy to finish a fly like this, and I see people do this all the time. Their chest caves, they round, and they finish with front delts. They even finish with some stuff that can protract their shoulder blades. But what you want to think about is where is your upper arm finishing relative to your chest, relative to your pec. And so the cue that I give often is thinking about smashing your bicep into the side of your pec. Some other cues that help, and again, whether this is a press or especially with flies, this very much helps. Again, you can think about, again, that smash. If I put a pencil in there, smash that pencil into the side of your pec, or think about actually bringing your biceps together. They're not actually going to touch, but as you finish, feel like you're trying to get your biceps to press together. And often I tell people, kind of forget about your hands, forget about the handles. Lots of people will actually do this type of thing. They'll do a pec fly or a cable fly and they'll finish here. And if you actually look at the joint, finishing here when your hands touch, you might actually have a lot more contractile range. So if you see going from here to here, looking at this spot right here, there's actually a couple more degrees of contraction there at the pec, where if you focused more on them, especially if you keep the elbow straight, you can get a fully shortened, fully contracted pec smashed in together and your hands never even touch. So again, it doesn't have to be the bicep into the side of the pec. It doesn't have to be the biceps touching each other. You can think about them coming across, whatever it is. If you think more about where this upper arm finishes, you're much more likely to finish reps with your chest, with your pecs, as opposed to finishing with triceps or something else just to get things up higher. So there are your 3 tips. Again, first, focus on that upper arm path more than anything else. Again, as far as what part of the pec are we trying to bias? Tip number 2 is at the bottom of reps, think chest tall towards the ceiling, at the same time rowing into the bottom. Pull that bar into you, pinching those shoulder blades together. And tip 3, use cues that help you focus on, again, where your pec actually lives. When you focus on your hand, when you focus on moving a weight, it's very easy to have other stuff take over and get involved. Where if you focus again on just the joint that your pec influences, that it crosses over, and stuff that it actually moves, it's going to be much more likely you're able to keep the pecs doing most of the work and keeping other stuff out of it that you don't want doing it. So if you found these tips helpful, as always, please leave me some feedback below in the comment section, or if you have questions, comments, concerns, or feeling some feels, that's what the comment section is for. Until the next one, guys.